Red is one of the most iconic Pokemon characters, being featured in the manga, being the protagonist of the first games, and appearing in Pokemon Gold and Silver as an epic boss battle on top of Mount Silver. We know Red has what it takes to take on the Kanto region, the Johto region, and a little bit of the Hoenn region as seen in the manga, but what about Sinnoh? Today, we'll be doing a hardcore Nuzlocke on Pokemon Platinum using only Pokemon that Red used in the manga. Be sure to like and subscribe, and now on to the video where I replace our starter with Bulbasaur. Technically, Red's first Pokemon was a Poliwag, but Bulbasaur seemed more fitting for a starter, especially because Professor Oak did give him a Bulbasaur. For our rival, I named him Green since that's his name in the Japanese manga, while in English, it's Blue. It gets a bit confusing between the different languages, but since his tie was green, I figured green fits better. I then name our starter Sword to keep with Red's original nicknames, and say goodbye to our mother forever as we embark on our Sinnoh adventure. We do all the basic stuff and head to Jubilife City where we can get a fishing rod that I used to fish up a Poliwag named Polly. Since this game doesn't feature too many of Red's Pokemon that he used originally, we had to change some encounters around, and since this is also a Nuzlocke variant, please don't hate me too much, the Pokemon Company. After that, we fight Green and lay waste to him with Soar, since his puny knockoff little Pidgey doesn't even have any flight-type moves. Then in Oreburgh City, we have to fight Rorik and his rock-type foes. He leads with a Geodude, which is rather familiar for Red. Then after Sword takes it out, he sends out an Onix, which is also another familiar Pokemon. Onix was a bit more resistant than Geodude, but Sword was still able to knock it out, and then in comes a new Pokemon, Cranidos. I Leech Seeded to get some healing turns in there, and also to support Polly in the back in case we need to switch into it. That Leech Seed really came in handy, and this was a pretty close call because of how strong Cranidos' headbutts are. That's 1 badge down and 7 to go. Bulbasaur evolves into Ivysaur after the battle, gaining 2 levels from the Rorik battle alone. We can now head north to Floroma Town, and on our way we have to go through our nemesis, Aroma Lady Taylor, and her Budew. We're able to defeat her, and I don't want to focus too much on the Team Galactic events around here and in this game in general, unless it's a super key battle that's intense. So for the fight we have against Mars in the Valley Windworks, we lead with Soar and employ the same Leech Seed strategies. Things went rather smoothly up until her Purugly, which is rather scary. It's like a really overweight Persian, but still fast. We have Rock Smash to hit it for super effective damage, and this time we Poison Powder it to add residual damage, which finishes it off. We continue our journey through the forest where we meet Cheryl and make it through to Eterna City. Here we get the Explorer's Kit so we can find fossils, and since Red had an Aerodactyl on his team and the fossil lab is back in Oreburgh City, I thought now would be a good time for us to add Aerodactyl named Arrow to the team. It being a flying type Pokemon seems great for Gardenia's grass type gym, however it doesn't have any flying type moves yet and won't get flying type moves until at least after the next level cap. I still lead with Arrow in the fight against her and Supersonic her Turtwig to try to get around it going for Reflex, but it reflects anyway. Turtwig still falls to a couple of bites after baiting out a potion, and once the Reflect wears off, Cherim goes down rather easily. On her ace Pokemon Roserade, Arrow is pretty low, so I switch to Ivysaur and spam some Rock Smashes to also lower Roserade's defense. Sora then also gets down to pretty low HP, so I risk going back into Aerodactyl, which should live a hit, especially if it doesn't go for a grass type move. And it does because she goes for Poison Sting this time and doesn't go for Magical Leaf. We do get poisoned, but cured by a Pecha Berry that I had just in case. And thanks to Sora's clutch defense drops with Rock Smash, Aerodactyl knocks out Roserade with a bite. From here we have to go to Jupiter to get more Stupider, get a bike, and make our way into Hearthome City. This is perfect because in the manga, Red got Pikachu around the same time he got to his 3rd gym badge. So here we can catch a Pikachu named Pika and add it to the team. Polly then evolves, and we also get an Eevee from BB that we name V, and since Red had an Eevee on his team, I added as well, and our team is coming together really nicely already. All that's left to do now in this town is fight Fantina in her Ghost-type gym. Bites are able to take out her Mischievous and Haunter with ease from Aerodactyl, leaving us with about 2/3 health for her last Pokemon. On her ace Mismagius, I stay in with Aerodactyl as Bite gets a critical hit, one-shotting the Mismagius for our 3rd gym badge. On our way out of the city, Green challenges us to another fight that I kind of forgot about, but since we have good type diversity now, we're able to dispatch him rather easily and make it through. He always leads with his Staravia, and we have Pikachu for that, and then his starter is a Monferno, but we have Poliwhirl. Now that we're in Veilstone City, we can go south and get the Aerial Ace TM for Aerodactyl, visit the game corner and see that nothing fishy is happening here, at least yet. and focus on evolving our Eevee into Espeon. I run around to boost Eevee's happiness, give it a massage, and after it evolves, we head back to the game corner to get the Psychic TM. Then in Maylene's gym, Ivysaur evolves to Venusaur, and now that we have a strong Psychic-type Pokemon, we're ready for Maylene's Fighting-type Pokemon. Without Espeon, I'm not really sure how we would have done this, but Espeon takes out her Meditite and Machoke with just one Psychic, then her Lucario does live a Psychic, but doesn't knock us out on the following turn, and since we're faster, we just defeat Maylene in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And so far, Red is faring very well in the Sinnoh region, but I hope that doesn't change soon. The distance between now and the next gym is rather short, so I just head straight for Pastoria City. We see Green, who is still weak and can't handle our Pikachu too easily, especially since I taught it Grass Knot now. This will be great for Crasher Wake's Water-type gym, so I lead with Pikachu on the Gyarados. It doesn't one-shot with Thunderbolts, but we do get the Paralyze, and then the Gyarados gets full Paralyze on the next turn, as Crasher Wake just switches into Quagsire rather than letting the Gyarados fall. I thought about clicking Grass Knot on the Gyarados because it was so low and I thought it would knock out anyway, but I figured the chances of switching were so low and then he switched anyway. Quagsire only has Mud Shot and I figure we can live it, so I just stay in and Grass Knot it, which doesn't take it out, but we do live the Mud Shot. Since we're faster, I just Grass Knot a second time and finish off Quagsire. He then goes back into Gyarados and uses a potion for some reason, but I just aim with our Pikachu and knock it out. On his last Pokemon, Floatzel, I know he has Aqua Jet and I don't want to risk Pikachu going down here, so I go into Poly to try to Hypnosis it, but we miss. So I go into Venusaur and Razor Leaf, which leaves it at just above half health after it eats its Citrus Berry. I don't think another Razor Leaf will kill and I don't want to take an Ice Fang, so I switch into Espeon, which does take a hit, and get the victory as Espeon goes for a Psychic. That's 5 badges so far, putting us at about the halfway point of this journey, so let's see how far Red can make it. We can now chase the Galactic Grunt around, help the Psyducks, see Cynthia's grandmother, get a free choice specs from this shop, and fight the Galactic leader Cyrus. This guy doesn't seem as scary as Giovanni, although his motives are a bit more out of this world, so to say. I lead with Aerodactyl on his Sneasel to take it out with Ancient Power, then I switch into Pika on Golbat after Arrow gets confused. Pikachu lives with just 1 HP, very close call there. So I go back into Aerodactyl to finish off Golbat, then this evil Pidgey looking thing wasn't even a threat. The most important thing about this adventure to Celestic Town is we now have access to the move Surf, meaning we can surf on Route 213 and get a Water Stone for Polly to evolve into Poliwrath. I then track down the Brick Break TM for Polly, which will be perfect for Byron's Steel-type gym. Surf also allows us to make it into Kanalave City where his gym is, but our rival Green wants to battle us as we cross the bridge. Green hasn't been that much of a threat compared to his Kanto counterpart, but he's slowly starting to get better. I lead with Pika to take out his lead Staraptor, however it lives a Thunderbolt and then one-shots Pika with a takedown for the first oof of our team. Arrow then revenge oofs the Staraptor as Soar takes care of Floatzel since it doesn't have Ice Fang anymore for some reason. Espeon can take care of his Roserade and Infernape with Psychic, allowing us to defeat Green at the expense of our precious Pikachu named Pika. This is arguably Red's most iconic Pokemon, although the bond between Pika and Red isn't as big as the one between Ash and Pikachu. It's still a very tough loss, and playing as Red but not having a Pikachu by our side anymore just feels weird. Luckily we can pick up this Snorlax, add to the team that was also holding a leftover, since Red did get a Snorlax around the time he got his 6th gym badge in Kanto as well. Now for the gym, Polly looks great against Byron as it can use Dig to one-shot his lead Magneton and take out the Steelix after a couple of Surfs, because Byron used a full restore. I then go for a stab, 4 times super effective Brick Break on his Ace Bastiodon, but it lives a hit and then knocks out Polly with Metal Burst. So far, Kanalave City has been very brutal for us, decimating 2 of our Pokemon, but at least Soar can finish off Bastiodon for our 6th gym badge. Goodbye Polly, Red's first Pokemon technically, and a Pokemon that I'm surprised isn't more popular in the Pokemon universe, because the creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri, said that Poliwag was his favorite Pokemon. But now to focus back on our adventure, we have to get Strength, visit the library, then finally leave this city that caused us so much pain. We then check out the 2 nearest lakes to clear out Team Galactic's plans, and we even recruit this really angry Gyarados who's mad at Team Galactic because they just drained his home, so it decides to team up with us to get revenge on Team Galactic. Now in the manga, Green traded Red his Charizard for Gyarados so Red could make it on top of Mount Silver easier. Since heading up to Snow Point is kind of like climbing a snowy mountain and a fire type would help us out for the next gym, we trade our Gyarados for Green's Charizard. I even gave it the choice specs item, so on the way up it just obliterated everything in sight with Flamethrower and started off real hot against whatever the 7th gym leader's name is, until she sent out Frostlass. Frostlass is faster and double team, so we missed a Flamethrower. No big deal, I'll just Flamethrower again, but we missed again. She then goes for Blizzard, knocking us down to only 5 HP, meaning if we miss again, we're dead. Luckily Charizard listens to us and connects, taking down Frostlass for our 7th gym badge. After that, we can see how Green messed up at Lake Acuity, probably because we had his Charizard, then stormed the Galactic HQ to stop Cyrus from doing whatever it is he's trying to do. We make it all the way through the base and into the lecture hall where Cyrus says subscribe to PaPaSea, which you should totally do. Then he challenges us to a battle. Our lead Charizard one-shots his Sneasel, then his Crobat lives a hit as he goes for the heal. We manage to get a burn on the next turn, then I switch into Aerodactyl to finish off Crobat as well as his fat evil Pidgeotto. Then we do some Shadow Realm or Distortion World exploring or whatever, get messed up from the backwards controls, then fight Cyrus again, but this time he has a different team than the one he had about 15 minutes ago. This time we lead with Lax on his Houndoom and skillfully dodge a Will-O-Wisp as Yawn puts Houndoom to sleep. Houndoom goes down, then we yawn the incoming Gyarados. It's a shame we can't have an honor battle here, but since it's asleep, Sora can take care of it nicely. I then stay in on the evil Pidgeotto and Leech Seed it, so that way when we switch to Aerodactyl it can heal up a bit more since no matter what it has to take some damage. The Leech Seed eventually knocks out the Honchkrow too, so it was definitely worth it. On his Weavile I stay in an Iron Head, then we get the flinch, which is pretty lucky. Weavile heals with its berry, then lives another Iron Head with like 2 HP, and unfortunately knocks out Aerodactyl with Ice Punch. I really thought we'd live a hit or just get the KO, but unfortunately it's bye-bye Aerodactyl. Charizard's at full health though, so we can take out the Weavile. Then I switch into Espeon to take out Crobat as we defeat Cyrus. This was a really scary battle, and after winning it, we get to catch Giratina. I just chuck the Master Ball at it to get it over with, and leave it in the PC since I don't plan on using it. I do imagine though that if Red did catch a Giratina in his journey, he probably would have named it Tina. With all that out of the way though, we can now focus on becoming the champion and making it to Sunyshore City to collect our final gym badge, and regroup the team a little bit before the Elite Four. The first thing I do is get a Nidorino and add it to the team, something I probably should have done sooner since Nidorino was one of the first Pokemon Red ever caught in the manga. It doesn't seem too great for this electric type gym however, so I give Espeon the choice specs Charizard had and teach Snorlax Earthquake for Volcaner's electric type gym. On Volcaner's lead Jolteon, it barely lives a Psychic as it Thunder Waves us. He heals, but we knock out Jolteon without taking another hit. Then on Raichu, I stay in Psychic as he Signal Beams. It doesn't do that much, so I stay in, take another hit, and knock out Raichu. On Luxray, we have to switch, so I go into Snorlax and take it out with a couple of Earthquakes, but even with leftovers, we're still at pretty low HP, especially for his incoming Pokemon Electivire. I switch into Nidorino to try to confuse it with Flatter, but it does way more damage to us than I wanted it to, so I double back into Venusaur to Leech Seed it as we take a Fire Punch. Knowing that he will most likely Fire Punch again, I switch into Charizard to take the Fire Punch, and barely miss the KO with Flamethrower. On the following turn, Electivire goes for a strong Thunder Punch that we narrowly live with only 10 HP remaining. So many close calls for Red today. The next Flamethrower knocks out Electivire, giving us our final gym badge in the Sinnoh region. With our sights set on the Victory Road, we can now get the Waterfall HM, but have no Pokemon that can learn Waterfall. It is then that I realized that Red had a Blastoise given to him by Blue when he climbed Mount Silver, which is why he has one in the Gen 2 games on top of Mount Silver. So I catch a Blastoise and add it to our party, giving us a full party for the first time in this entire run. I then journey across the sea and through the Victory Road as we prepare for the final bits of our Sinnoh adventure. Before we fight the Elite Four, we have one last fight against Green. I lead with Blastoise on his discount Pidgeot to take it out with Ice Beam, but he just U-turns into Roserade, which lives the Ice Beam. I switch into Espeon to take it out with Psychic, then he sends out Heracross as I go into Charizard and knock it out with Flamethrower. On his Floatzel, I switch to Snorlax and take a Brick Break as we yawn it to sleep. Snorlax then KOs Floatzel with a return. After that, I switch into Blastoise on Infernape and knock it out, then Espeon takes out the discount Pidgeotto. All that's left now is his Snorlax, so I go into Venusaur and set up Leech Seed on it. It ends up paralyzing us with Body Slam, so I go into our Snorlax, which also gets paralyzed by Body Slam. I then switch it to Nido, thinking it can finish off the Snorlax, but nope, it gets struck by a critical hit and goes down, so Charizard has to come in to clean up the battle for us. Losing a party member right before we're about to battle the Elite Four really stings, but at least we can replace it with Lapras. I don't remember Red ever having a Lapras in the manga, but he had one on his team when you fight him in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so I guess it fits the criteria of this run. The funny thing is now, our team is basically just Red's Mount Silver team in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, just with Espeon over Pikachu now. And now, for the Elite Four. Aaron's Bug-type foes weren't too much of a threat, especially for Charizard. It one-shots everything up until his Drapion, which lived a hit, but doesn't really do much damage to us and then falls a few turns later. 1 down, 3 more, and the champion to go. For Bertha, her team is all ground type, so I lead with Venusaur. It one-shots her lead Wishcash, then on Gliscor I go into Lapras. Ice Beam one-shots Gliscor, although we do take some damage here, but I still stay in and outspeed the next 2 Pokemon, being Golem and Rhyperior, which go down to a single Surf each. On her Hippowdon, I go to Blastoise and take it out with a few Surfs. So far, nothing too bad. For Flint's Fire-type Pokemon, I lead with Blastoise on his Houndoom, which falls to a Surf after he sets up the Sunny Day. On his Infernape, I go into Espeon to handle it, then Snorlax stalls out the Rapidash. He then sends out Flareon and burns Snorlax with Will-O-Wisp, but Earthquake is still a 2-hit KO through the burn, so I just stay in and take out the Flareon. On his Magmortar, I pivot into Charizard to eat a Fire-type move and bait a Thunderbolt, so we can switch into Espeon. We live a hit, but don't KO. We then live another hit with only 1 HP again and knock out Magmortar on the next turn, and that was a pretty close call there. Last up for the Elite Four is Lucian and his Psychic-type team. Snorlax has Crunch, which is a good lead. He leads with Mr. Mime and sets up Reflect to boost his defenses. Crunch gets a critical hit though, basically ignoring the Reflect and one-shots Mr. Mime. On Gallade, I stay in to take a Drain Punch so we can yawn the Gallade to sleep, then switch to Espeon. I thought this would be a 2-hit KO at best from Espeon, but it turns out we just get a critical hit off Psychic and one-shot the Gallade. On his Espeon, I can't risk the Honor Battle since he has Shadow Ball and we don't. We're also locked into Psychic from our choice specs. So I go into Snorlax, eat a Shadow Ball, and Crunch as the Reflect wears off, which was also a critical hit. On Alakazam, Snorlax is really feeling itself, so I leave it in, but Alakazam has Focus Blast, connects, and down goes Lax. We got a bit too confident there as Lax was destroying in this Elite Four run, so I go into Blastoise and miss the knockout with Bite on Alakazam, then switch to Charizard to finish off the fight, which Charizard tends to do a lot. We are so close to completing this hardcore Nuzlocke journey in Sinnoh as Red, and all that stands in our way is the champion, Cynthia. Red and Cynthia are 2 of the strongest trainers in any Pokemon game, so this should be a good one. I decide to lead with Charizard on her lead Spiritomb and just brute force it with Flamethrowers to knock it out in 2 turns. I then switch into Venusaur on her Milotic and set up Leech Seed, which combined with the leftovers Venusaur is now holding after Snorlax fell, heals a considerable amount of HP each turn. We go back and forth for a few turns until Venusaur gets the knockout. On her Togekiss, I go into Lapras and take a ton from Aura Sphere, but Ice Beam does a ton of damage back. I switch into Espeon next as she Shockwaves, then falls to a Psychic. Cynthia then sends out Lucario next, but it gets one-shotted by Psychic too, not sure what she was going for there. On Garchomp, I just stay in and Psychic again, which does over half and forces Garchomp to eat its berry. Espeon then unfortunately falls to a Dragon Rush, but Blastoise is able to avenge Espeon with Ice Beam. All that's left now is Cynthia's Roserade, which she now sends out. I then send out the Charizard that Green lent us and hammer away with Flamethrowers to defeat Cynthia, showing us that Red has what it takes to beat the Sinnoh League. This was a lot of fun to do since I got to use Pokemon in this game that you don't normally see, and if you also enjoyed it, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Pokemon videos, since I plan on doing more runs like this in the future. Thank you all for watching, and bye bye.